And then he said, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills.
I can't catch a break, guys.
Yeah.
Get them the fuck away from me. I can't be around those guys.
People think, oh, well, cleaning your room, that's just a cliche. It's like, yeah, really, eh? Just go ahead and try it.
If people had any idea how powerful sleep is for healing from anything, and the fact that it's free.
My mind is absolutely bulletproof, solid as a rock.
Podcast. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to the podcast. Brandon, how are you getting on today?
Yeah, fantastic. Feeling good.
Feeling good, 10 out of 10?
A little bit hungry.
A little bit hungry. We might delve into that in a little bit. Me and Brandon are doing a wee experimental 72-hour fast for the autophagy benefits. But maybe I said, we keep meaning to do this fast podcast. I said the Brandon stars, like, it's just something that I would like to be more prepared for, get all the research together, because it is it's a very interesting topic, but it's also something that you just want to treat with care, because you don't want anybody jumping into this kind of stuff for the wrong reasons, let's say. Because
we'll just talk about fasting now. We've opened the cast.
I've done a lot of fasting over the years, and to be fair, like, it's a useful weight loss tool, but I feel like nobody ever keeps the weight off. I don't think I've ever kept the weight off from fasting. It's a useful health tool, but it's not a weight loss tool. So that's
I feel like it depends on why you fast. I feel like nearly fasting for weight loss is not a good strategy, but I feel like fasting to develop your relationship with food, I feel like, is beneficial.
Yeah, or maybe give you an appreciation for food. Obviously, there's a lot of things like dopamine resets and different things. Yeah, but topic for another day though. We'll let you guys know what our experience is like after the fact. But on today's episode, what we're going to be talking about is fitness and fatherhood. So obviously myself and Brandon, over the last couple of years, we have become dads. Myself 2 years ago and Brandon 3 years ago, give or take. So we want to just kind of give some insight into how that has affected our fitness journeys, and what advice we would give to other dads, and any dads that are listening, or any mums. We'd love to get your perspective on it too. So as we said, we're real people. Send us a message on Instagram, send us a message. We'd love to know what you think about this topic. But Brandon, for you, like, what has been the biggest impact being a dad has made on you as a person, but also within the context of your own fitness journey?
Well, one of the biggest things is obviously now I'm not going to say that there's less time. Obviously, time is now a lot more valuable. You know, it's a lot more, like, I've got requirements now. I'm a lot more tethered to the house because, you know, obviously it's a tag team partnership. You know, Chloe does X amount of hours, I do X amount of hours. You know, you try and share the load when you're there. There's other responsibilities and stuff that have to be done in the house. And these little kiddos need minded. And just for anybody who doesn't know, I've got 2 young lads at home. I've got Mason, who's 3, and Zach, who's 1. And obviously, again, like, so you got to be there a lot more, and things aren't as lackadaisy as they were before. You know, I can tell Chloe, oh, I signed up 200 miles now this month. That's an hour and a half to 2 hours of training, you know, 4 or 5 days out of the week, on top of maybe stuff that I'm doing as well. And you could just drop that in a whim. Whereas now you can't. You just kind of have to be a little more structured, a little more organized, and you have to, you know, run things by herself to make sure that, you know, we've got childcare. If she's got something on or I've got something on, where are the kids going to be? And obviously, again, then you have to manage the load for your partner, because if you're away doing all your training and that's all you care about, well, then they're going to have an increased workload, and you have to decide on whether or not that's fair, and you kind of have to have that conversation and that kind of stuff. But for me, I feel like in terms of my own training, I feel like it hasn't really affected me all too much, because I am of the mentality now where I just make it work. Like, I'm not of the like, it's not an option for me to miss a session now unless I'm genuinely sick or the kids are genuinely sick. And, you know, if a day off comes, that's no problem. But I'm not of the mentality now that it's like I haven't got the time. It's like, find the time. If it's my lunch break, it will be my lunch break. If it's after work, if it's after the kids go to bed, if it's a workout at home, if it's yoga, if it's stretch, whatever, it's like, we're getting it in today. And that's kind of my mentality. And I would never use the kids as a medium to long-term excuses to not get the session in, But obviously, having kids, things are going to come up. They're going to have a sick week. There's going to be a sick house, and so that's going to appear like you might miss sessions a little bit more frequently because you have kids. But I feel like as using them as an excuse is kind of like, well, if it wasn't the kids, it would be your job, it would be your energy levels, it would be other commitments that you had, it would be your friends, it would be it's like if you're going to find an excuse, you're going to find an excuse, and if you're going to find a way, you're going to find a way. And the key is obviously as well, like I've been doing this for multiple years, so I've got used to finding a way without kids. But it's like if you are new to now having kids and also trying to find a way, like initially trying to find that and pull it out of yourself is a stressful, time consuming experience. And so, if you're new to fatherhood and new to working out, it's a lot to take on. And so my biggest advice to to dads who are trying to find the time would be to look at your schedule, sit down and have a look at the schedule, and then it's about putting the time aside and obviously having that conversation with whoever's at home and whoever you have to help, and try and figure out, can we, pass the kids off for a wee bit while you get your health kind of its own pocket of time as well, because you have to fill your cup first, and it's super important that you don't neglect your physicality, because what's going to happen then is then mentally you're going to be sluggish, and then nobody's getting the best from you. But it's also important that you have reasonable expectations of your job, your career, your kids, and what you can actually manage to do. But the key for me has always been and will always be putting the time aside. Is like schedule it out. If it's not scheduled and it has to be a non-negotiable, it's like this is not up for debate. And again, if you're debating too often, you might have overloaded yourself. It's like you don't have to do an hour a day if that's starting to feel like too much on you and too much on anybody else. But it's like, when that session comes up, unless it's genuinely an emergency, you have to go and get it in.
Yeah, that sounds good. So the key thing that's kind of really shouting out to me there is like for the dads, it's priorities and time management, and utilizing the time, being proactive, looking at the week, looking at the day, where can I fit this in, and making a plan to make it happen. Because one thing that I see a lot, we obviously see a lot, but again, we're all guilty of this, because I definitely haven't got it perfectly over the last couple of years either. But it's not necessarily just with being a father; it's with everything else. It's just another responsibility to add to the list. It's not just that, because obviously nothing exists in isolation. While you're a dad, you're still a boss, you're still a brother, you're still, you still have your job, you still have your friends, you still have your family, you still have your hobbies, you still have all this stuff. So just another thing to kind of add to the mix and to try and juggle it. And that's why, you know, being organized and having some basic time management skills. I would just encourage anybody listening that struggles with time to really ask yourself, like, have you ever really looked at your week? Like, have you ever used a weekly planner? Have you ever used a monthly planner? Have you actually ever sat down, went hour by hour, day by day, and just thought, when am I fitting it all in? Have you ever, said, right, where's time for the hobbies? When am I sleeping? When am I doing the meal prep? All the things that you want to do. And when you see it down on paper, two things happen. Sometimes you feel like you can realize that you've bit off more than you can chew, and that you need to eliminate first, because there's a lot of stuff that we do. We get ourselves roped into these things that aren't necessarily sustainable for us, or they're not win-win. We're giving a lot, but we're not really getting from it. Not even necessarily financially, but maybe emotionally, spiritually, whatever it might be. But just this kind of thing of having that plan is going to be so important. Or what happens is a lot of the time people see that there's a lot more hours than we think about it. What I really liked about what you said there was, not using the kids as an excuse in the medium or long term, because it can always be used as an excuse in the short term. Like, kids, can just wake up in the middle of the night and start getting sick. It's like, oh, here we go. And fair enough. I think you said it on one of the previous podcasts was, life is going to give you days off. So if you're giving yourself days off, like, and life's going to give you a lot of days off, it's like, well, then you're taking a lot of days off. Which, if you've got any sort of reasonable goals, like, what is reasonable? Like, what does it mean to be a fit dad to you? Like, what when you look at, like, say, the archetype of the ideal of, like, who you're trying to be, like, what kind of dad do you feel like you want to be? Like, what are the things that you want to kind of check off? Because I know you mentioned there, like, filling up your own cup first, and I feel like part of that is obviously being a good example. I feel like people burn the candle at both ends in a sense where, they don't exercise because they haven't got time because of the kids, but then your energy suffers. It's like you're not necessarily being a good example. You can't play with the kids. I do the stuff like, throw Molly up and down. Like, she's 14 kilos. You need to be modestly fit for that. Like, I hold her all the time. I'm like, I want to stay strong just so I can hold her like this, drag this out for as long as possible. And play games or get in the water and play football and stuff like that. So like, what is your idea? Like, what are the kind of key things that's important to you as you kind of strive to be, say, the best dad you can be?
Well, one big thing is like, do I have enough energy for my day? Like, that's key. Like, my day starts at 4:45 in the morning, and so the most important thing for me is sleep. And this is something. Obviously, people could go, really into depth with, and something I really find an awful lot of parents struggle with is like, I'm not sure what their night's sleep is like, but like, that's really important. And for some parents, it can be massively challenging. So I don't know if I have any, like, I don't really have any advice except for read books on, because I know there is fantastic books and advice out there, like, to help get your kids into a good bedtime routine. Because if your kids aren't sleeping, like, that's going to be detrimental to everything else. So the first thing that you need to sort out is some kind of bedtime routine or some kind of strategy that at least you're sleeping. You're getting the minimum amount of sleep, because if you wake up the next day and you're not well slept, and again, yeah, like, every once in a while that's going to happen, and maybe for you in that situation, the smart decision is skipping the gym, because like, you're not, like, you've got two and a
Perfect
half
sleep
hours
for
sleep.
Yeah.
It's like,
If you're only getting 4 or 5 hours sleep, there's honestly no point working out, genuinely.
Yeah, exactly. But again, so if you can set the time aside and maybe do a 15-minute yoga session with a 10-minute shavasana, a bit of a sleep in it, I think, again,
do a work instead of a workout. Go for a walk, do some yoga, something that kind of makes you feel more energized. Don't do something that's going to take from energy from you. Do something that's going to give you energy, which is lower intensity type stuff. Yoga, walk.
Exactly. So the key obviously is like, look, you got to sleep. As a person, as a parent, you got to sleep. And so if you're not sleeping, that would be the first thing. Because really, what are we talking about? We're talking about, like, we want to have energy both physically, emotionally, and mentally. We want to be able to be creative with our kids, to be able to play games that engage them. Emotionally, we want to be present and not be short with them, so that way we can give them our best selves and not have a guilt on us that we were, that we're traumatizing them because of our shitty mood at some stage during the day. And then again, physically, like, do you have to sit on the couch because you're just exhausted? So you just can't play with your kids. You can't sit on the floor. Stuff like, actual physical fitness and mobility comes in. What's your weight like? Can you run after your kids? And obviously, even you said there, Steve, Molly's 14 kg, for example, is like, I don't even see myself as needing to be fit yet. Mason's 3. I feel like when 5 or 6, it's like, imagine, like then you're going to actually be playing games with somebody. Like, then you're actually going to be challenged by them. And if your kid can outrun you, it's like, that to me is not a great, like, I don't want to be there. That's not the place that I would like to be as a parent, as a dad. So that is obviously my big goal, is that I can coach Mason, train with him, be a good, reliable training partner for him to help develop him and Zach. Obviously, I'm thinking of Mason because Mason's coming first along that road. And so, can you spar with your child? Can you do drills with them? Can you play with them? Can you engage with them? Can you cause them to grow because you are growing yourself? And again, can you sit on the floor with them? Like, a big goal for me as part of being a dad was the night feeds with Mason and Zach. Like, I couldn't sit up in the bed because of my mobility. I couldn't sit cross-legged. And if I was just sitting there, eventually my back would be sore and I kind of have to move, and I'd disturb them a little bit. And then Chloe wasn't happy because she'd nearly have to do it, or I'd do it wrong, or I'd wake them or annoy them. And so, little stuff like that. It's like, are you mobile enough to be a parent? Are you experiencing any aches or pains in your body that are kind of preventing you from being as helpful or as present as you could be? I would like to sit on the floor and play with my kids for a while, but I can't because my back is sore or whatever. It's like, what are your limitations? Is it knee pain? Like, can you not play football with your kids because you got knee pain? Can you not go hiking? Can you not take them for walks because you're overweight and you just can't manage the load? And so that kind of, in terms of, like, obviously in the guise of health and fitness, is like, that's what it means to me. Is like, I want to be energetically fit and fit for purpose, fit for fatherhood. I want to
fit for service. Remember, I seen that in Aubrey Marcus. I think Aubrey Marcus has that thing in his podcast called "Fit for Service," and I just really like the idea of that, the concept of, like, being fit for service. So service in service of your family, service of your community, service of your country. just being fit for service, like that
Yeah.
kind of service based mindset. I think is very powerful, because that's what I feel like what fatherhood is all about, or even more so like being a man is all about. Like, it's like, what are you doing? Who are you helping? Like, what is your purpose? What is your mission? Like, men are very purpose driven, mission driven, I think. There was very interesting clip I seen from a podcast. I think it was Chris Williamson, but it kind of talked about this concept of, like how they treat men's depression and women's depression the same, when it shouldn't be. I can't remember who exactly was speaking about it. It was on his podcast, but some doctor or some psychologist. But it's basically about, like, when women are depressed, they need more love, care, and affection. They need that. But what men need more responsibility, more purpose. They need a reason to get out of bed in the morning. They need meaningful work is what they need. And there is nothing greater than that, than being a dad. But like, it's also, people can be doing the exact same situation and just have two different stories about it, and just have a completely different experience. You know what I mean? Somebody, like, you could look at it as being being a mission, or you could look at it as being a pain in the ass. And you could look at it as a massive opportunity, or you could look at it as a financial ball and chain. You get what I'm saying? So it's like it just really depends what kind of story people have around these things. But
Well,
I just thought that was so powerful.
Jordan Peterson says like one of the most shocking things about men and like just people in general, but obviously like the vast majority of people that he talks to are men, because for whatever reason that's who's buying into what he's selling. Obviously, an awful lot of women are as well. One of the things he said is like, you'd be shocked how many people are just starved for an encouraging word. And I feel like that's kind of part of like obviously we can give you responsibility, but we also have to encourage men to say that, you are strong, you are fit for purpose. It's like you are capable of taking on this responsibility, and you should take on this responsibility because you are. And again, so it's like, do you have like a community of people who encourage it? It's like that again, just kind of on the guise of men's depression. It's like it's not just more responsibility you need, it's that belief in yourself, and then obviously like the belief to set on for a greater purpose. Like, there's no point just telling you you're fucking great and you're not doing anything at all. So, well, are you great then? It's like, or are we just kind of blowing smoke? But at the same time, if we just overload your back without kind of addressing, your core beliefs about yourself, and again, like, people need sweet fuck all encouragement. It's like literally just a little bit, like just a genuine a genuine bit of love and encouragement, like, can go a very, very long way. And again, like back to fit for fatherhood, it's like me, the dad of two young boys. It's like I want to be again educated and knowledgeable and wise enough, and to have sacrificed enough that I feel like a disciplined person. That my self confidence is enough that I could pass that on to my boys, and that they could grow up to be strong and disciplined young men. That's kind of what I want out of being a parent. Like, I want to be proud of the job that I did, and I need to first work on myself, because otherwise, I was listening to, I think it was Sadhguru was talking the other day. If your kids, like, if everything you do, your kids are running from, it's because they don't want to be like you. And so it's like, well, how do you make your kids like you? Look at the lions, like the baby lions. If you see the big lion walking, the baby lions are following suit. The monkeys are walking, the little monkeys are following suit. And so it's like you got to teach them people how to be people. And if they look at that and go, I don't want to be that, it's like they'll split. But it's like you have to be that person that they go, geez, I just want to be like that.
Yeah, that's cool. Because that is, isn't it? Like, I just want to be like my dad. But you want your kids to be even better than you. I remember I listened to another story the other day. It was Eddie Hearn, the boxing promoter from the UK. And he was telling a story about his dad, and when his dad kind of was sparring him in the ring, and I think it was like 14, 15. And he could only spar his dad anyway, but he ended up saying he gave his dad a good whooping. But his dad got out of the ring, and his dad was so proud, that because he felt like his son had passed the test, that he was now, fit and capable of kind of taking care of himself, etc. Which is part of that too. Like, and a lot of that kind of gets passed off as like, like toxic masculinity, etc. But these are things that are actually important to men. It's important to be able to defend yourself. There's a certain level of I think calmness and confidence that comes from just knowing that you can defend yourself. Worst case scenario, you at least have basic self defense skills. But can really help out. Like, somebody that has no combat experience, versus somebody just has a little bit, person just with a little bit wins pretty much every time. But these things are important to men. But it's like who do you want to be in the sense, like, or who do you want our kids to be? But I think it's really it's hard even because you've got sons and I've a daughter as well, obviously. So it's kind of like a different. I feel like it's a different perspective in a sense
Mm,
because this whole thing you're trying to be a good example of how she should want to be a good example of how she should be treated by men. That's really what you're trying to do by giving her a good example of what, like, how I take how I take care of her, and Jenny is how she should, this should be eventually become the minimum standard for how she should want to be treated
mm.
by her future partner, etc. So that's kind of really what I'm kind of more focused on at the minute. um but I said, like it's not easy to be a dad. It's a lot of it is just trying to become the best version of yourself. I think feel like you check a lot of boxes when you're just trying to be the best that you can be, just all
Yeah.
around.
And so that's again just back onto that point that Sadhguru was talking about, is like everybody's like talking about how we can change our kids and how we can like fix the kids and adjust the kids personality to be X, Y. It's you need to work on. It's like
Yeah.
they'll model after you if you model yourself well enough. Like they'll model you because they'll get it. Like nobody sees somebody walking head first into a fucking tree and goes, oh, I'm following. It's like if they see the mistake, they go the other way. And so it's like if you're making unconscious mistakes and you think your kids can't see them, it's like, of course they can. They're watching and they're learning, and whether even not they're aware of it or not. And so it's like they're learning from you, and when they see you kicking ass, taking names, being successful, being the man, they're gonna go that. And again, either that's Molly going, that's what I want, or my son's going, that's what I want to be. And so it's like that's as a dad, that's how it goes. And again, similar, flip the script for moms. It's like moms. It's like if they are kicking ass, doing everything, being the right kind of people, like Chloe, the boys are gonna go, I want a woman like that. And Molly the same, looking at Jenny, kind of, I'm gonna be like her. That's just how it goes. And that's kind of where the whole Freud thing comes in. It's like men marry their mother kind of thing. It's like or again, it's like all this kind of early imprints that happen is like, it's super important. It's super important who your parents are, and it's super important how they act, because kids are just like little sponges, and it's super important that you're giving them the right kind of stuff to soak up.
Yeah. But it's funny, it's like nobody's ever going to really get it fully right. Like it's just like all you can do is your best. Like, kind of, as I'm going to read a small bit from my favorite book, The Four Agreements. And one of the rules is always do your best. And that's kind of like, once you do your best, like you don't feel bad. Like you just, like, you're doing your best. Like, did I miss? Could I have went to the workout? Could I not went to the workout? Like, if you probably could have went, you'll feel guilty. But if the kids were genuinely sick, like, you don't care. Like I couldn't have went. Like it is what it is. So we only kind of really beat ourselves up when we know we probably could have done better in the situation. But
I'm gonna put one back up against you, and again, why it's so important to parent. If you're a shitty parent and you instill, like you can instill the wrong feeling in your kids, like they might feel like their best is never good enough. This is another job. There's another job as a parent, because I know people all the time who I ask them to give me genuine feedback on what they did, and they could do a great job and still put themselves down about it. And it's like, that's again another big problem that I see as a coach, is that people don't have fair expectations of themselves, which is absolutely, it's very demotivating. Like, because I know for myself, like I walked into, once I learned what was reasonable, or once I understood how important it was to kind of have a balanced approach, like instead of trying to do and live in extremes, that once I realized, okay, today we're going to do our best, as you said. And then I said, right, well, that's generally good enough. Like, again, I did a reasonable amount of work. I did my best. It wasn't perfect, wasn't anywhere close, but given the place that I was at, it was a step in the right direction. Like, once I started that mentality, the steps just keep on coming, keep on coming, keep on coming. But for some people, they just don't get that same positive feedback, because again, like, nothing they ever did was good enough.
yeah, because there just wasn't enough empathy and compassion to help them kind of understand, or just too high expectations. See, these are kids. Like, I said before, like, my thing we said before is like, these kids know nothing. Like, they grow up, they're just fucking empty heads. They know nothing. You have to teach them absolutely everything along the way. they've obviously they've got an essence and a spirit which is, you know, innocent and beautiful and playful and that kind of stuff, which is cool. But essentially they know nothing. We have to teach them everything, which is, you know, like everyone else, it's a blessing and a curse. It's an absolute blessing and a privilege, but it's also said it's a lot of responsibility. You know, you kind of got to be ready for it. Like people shouldn't go into it lightly, by any means. But
It's mad. Sorry, it's mad. Like where for the first part of Mason's life, he was growing from a baby into a boy, and now it's the same with Zach. But Mason's 3 now, and I can kind of see him. Like I'm starting to look at him like he's not like I don't see the baby him anymore. Like I see him as a little boy, and so you can see now the progression on is like the next thing is like obviously become a teenager and a young adult and a man. But like I mean, I can really see is like Jesus, like you're a real little person now. Like I have a little person in my hands, like in my the domain of in my domain. Yeah, it's like I'm fully responsible for this young person who's starting to kind of forge all these ideas and beliefs and like talking in full sentences and comprehending like a big picture of things at one go and being able to communicate that and internalize it. It's like that's a big responsibility, and it's such an honor to get to be a part of that. But it's like, geez, I don't want to miss. I know I'm going to miss, and it's going to hurt when I miss.
yeah,
But it's
yeah,
a big
because it
responsibility.
is. It's so precious. One of the things kind of going viral recently was that kind of Jordan Peterson clip with people with their kids. Like, you know, this whole thing, like, you know, you only have kids until they're 4, and it kind of goes so fast. And like once it's done, it's done. And there's so many people out there that, you know, maybe worked a little bit too hard and long, or, you know, were too distracted. Even things like, you know, catching yourself on your phone. I remember what he said to me the other day. It's like, Dad, get off your phone. I was like, oh fuck. You know, and I was like you gotta be mindful of that stuff, because like there's just so many distractions in life. You can just miss out on the magic. And you
Phones are
just
a
want to
big
try
one.
and
Phones are a big one. Phones
phones are a
are
big one, like, you know,
they're little
massive, massive.
weasels. They just creeped in there, didn't they? Like really, just become now the norm. They just become like if you're not on your like if you're doing nothing and you're not on your phone, like it's weird.
Yeah, it's just sitting around looking around you, like, you
You
know,
know what
like
I mean?
just this
Yeah.
constant need for stimulation, just dopamine. But that's, you know, why people, I feel, struggle with, not people, me as well, struggle with motivation and stuff. It's just because we have this constant dopamine supply. You know, this the end of like basic life is not entertaining enough, or is not stimulating enough, that we always need that little bit extra. We always need, but then also in the same breath, like these smartphones are an absolute insane piece of technology. Like what you can do with your smartphone, like there's more technology in your smartphone that was in, you know, the rockets that were going to the moon. Like it's insane. Like what you can actually do with a smartphone, and the actual information then that exists on the internet, because it's so interesting, it's so engaging. Like sometimes you just go down like these different rabbit holes. Like, you know, you just get curious about a topic, and then like you can just go and go and go. Like, you know, like there's just so much interesting stuff to kind of to pay attention to. But basically, what I want to do is, one of the key things for me, anyway, for me as a dad, one of the biggest lessons that I've had, or one of the biggest kind of aha moments, was reading this book, The Four Agreements. And it was just this little story about a mom and how she was, you know, interacting with her child, and just how important it is to be careful with your words with children, especially. But this also, like everyone else, this works both ways. It's like, it can be extremely damaging, or it can be extremely uplifting. That's one of also my favorite things about children. How you mentioned, like, you know, people are starved for encouragement. Like, it's so, you can really light a kid up with some genuine encouragement. You know, some genuine encouragement, some love, some high fives. You know, can really lift the child. But in that same breath, negativity towards a child, you know, like insulting a child or criticizing a child unfairly, etc., can really psychologically damage them, but impact our life in a way that I feel like we're not fully aware of the consequences. So in this book, with one of the first agreements is always be impeccable with your word. The concept is that your words are like magic. I've talked about this maybe once or twice, but I'm not going to assume that we're popular enough that people have heard all the episodes. So if you're listening to this, I'll kind of recap it.
Yeah.
So the first one is, you know, be impeccable with your word. Words are like magic, and we're casting spells. If I say, Brandon, you're a great lad, you know, I'm casting spells. You're like, oh, maybe I think I'm a great lad. And then if I said, no, Brandon, you're a dickhead. And then I said it again and again and again. So over time, that kind of eats into your psyche, and then people kind of start to align themselves with these things. Okay, but rather than kind of butcher
Especially again,
what?
like some people are particularly susceptible to things that anybody says. Like there's some people I remember listening to Jocko Willink kind of talking about, you know, like what kind of dad do you want to be? Like in terms of what do you do if, like we were driving down the motorway the other day and some fella, gave me the finger and flipped me off, and then he like said pull over, and then like got out of the car, and then your man wanted to fight him. It's like, what would you do in that situation? And it's like, do you really want to be the kind of guy that will fight with anybody in the street? You know,
Yeah.
so it's like, it's like if we get drawn into just
I've
anybody's
been there.
opinion.
There's times I would have got out and fuck you.
But see, this is the thing, and so it's like you don't want, like, because in the flip side of that coin, like play devil's advocate, it's like we don't want to be a coward, right? But the thing is being wise enough to know that that's just a fool. Like you're
Just
picking
not
a
worth
fight
it,
with an idiot, and
stranger.
so yeah, like for no reason, just because he had a an angry thought and he projected that out, and now you have it, you bit the bug. And so the same thing is like, again, social media talk, like, a hater, somebody comments something shitty on your thing, some people take it in. But the thing about being a parent, and the point that you're going to get to now, is like that words from people that you actually love and trust deeply is like they are going to hit regardless.
Exactly. This is the big
Yeah.
difference between a hater or a stranger and your own mother, your own father, your brother, your sister, your best friend. Like, it's very important that we are to some degree careful with our words when we kind of speak with people. And I also on that, I also feel that the people that are most easily influenced by others are people that don't have strong stories or strong stories about themselves and who they are,
Mm.
or the missions, visions for their future, that they're very easily swayed either way because of a lack of I can't think of the word for it. They don't have their own story straight, so they're very
Identity.
easily influenced. Exactly, they don't have a strong identity. I like stories, but yeah, but it's all linked to identity. So they don't have a strong identity in who they are. So therefore, it's very easy for somebody else to influence them and tell them who they are. And that's obviously one thing that Jenny says all the time. We're trying to do with our kids, is especially more like we're into like Montessori, and we hope to homeschool and different things because we feel like we can do. I feel like the system could do a much better job for kids, and I feel like as as a father, you know, education is massively important to me. But I feel like I could teach Molly more in a couple hours than she'd learn all day sitting at school. And everyone's always like, "Oh, what about the socializing?" I'm like, "Come on, like literally, like like it's very easy to replicate like social skills. Like kids can be
No,
extremely
no,
social without school."
some maybe it was you guys said this to me, is like what socializing is going on during class is like you've got an hour lunch break, maybe a 15-minute tea break, and then it's like, then maybe a chat at your desk. It's like, it's like that's 2-3 hours then after school would be enough.
But it's this thing I'm about to talk about as well, is like also children are extremely vulnerable at that age, and that there's a lot of people are traumatized from primary school because
I was bullied bad. I
kids
was
are
bullied.
exceptionally cruel. Yeah,
Yeah,
same, kids
I
can
was
be exceptionally cruel.
I remember getting bullied at school and definitely picking up some heavy insecurities in both primary and secondary school. Like
Yeah.
so. I
I
completely
I
agree with
feel
you.
more so. I feel more so primary school. So for me, like unless it's done in the right way, and just more so because one of these things you don't have that much control over, I'd prefer to do it myself if circumstances allow for that. That would be my preference. And more so as things like kids grow up so fast. Like if I could spend more time, if I could take Molly for an hour and Jenny could take her for an hour for school, and her Nana could take her for an hour for school. It's like she's going to get a better education with 3 hours of one-on-one that she would sitting in a desk in a room with 30, 40 other kids. And then obviously she'll still, be playing Gaelic and football and dancing and gymnastics and all the other things that we'll get her into, and playing with her cousins and going to the park and all this stuff too. So, but anyway, back to my original point here, but the world, just because this is something that really hit me as a parent, because I know it's so easy when you get frustrated, to be quick and to be short with kids, but honestly, it's but also just from what I know about positive self talk and affirmations and this kind of stuff, that's had a positive influence in my life. Anyway, this just really resonated. So what I'll do is I'll read an extract from the book, The Four Agreements, and then you can let me know what you think. There was a woman, for example, who was intelligent and had a very good heart. She had a daughter whom she adored and loved very much. One night she came home from a very bad day at work, tired, full of emotional tension, and with a terrible headache. She wanted peace and quiet, but her daughter was singing and jumping happily. The daughter was unaware of how her mother was feeling. She was not, she was in her own world, in her own dream. She felt so wonderful, and she was jumping and singing louder and louder, expressing her joy and her love. She was singing so loud that it made her mother's headache even worse, and at that certain moment, the mother lost control. Angrily, she looked at her beautiful little girl and said, "Shut up. You have an ugly voice. Can you just shut up?" The truth is that the mother's tolerance for any noise was non existent. It was not that the little girl's voice was ugly, but the daughter believed what her mother said. And in that moment, she made an agreement with herself. After that, she no longer sang because she believed her voice was ugly and would bother anyone who heard it. She became shy. She became shy at school, and if she was asked to sing, she refused. Even speaking to others became difficult for her. Everything changed in the little girl because of this new agreement. She believed she must repress her emotions in order to be accepted and loved. Whenever we hear an opinion and believe it, we make an agreement, and it becomes part of our beliefs. And even though she had a beautiful voice, never sang again, she developed a whole complex from one spell. This spell was cast upon her by the one who loved her the most, her own mother. That makes me emotional even reading that. So I just pictured like doing something like that to Molly would be just, so just so heartbreaking. Like, and that how they said at the end, like, it was cast by her own mother. The person who actually loved her the most, but just because she wasn't, let's say, careful with her words,
I know, but
can
so
have
sad
such
about
a
that
such a long
story.
lasting impact.
It paints a perfect picture of like it's it's barely even the man's fault. God love her,
Yeah,
that poor woman absolutely like
yeah,
busted from a long day, head splitting. Like I mean, like who couldn't relate to that? You know what I mean? But again, as
yeah,
I said, the child's the victim. You're the adult. And as I said, it's like what was the child doing? Nothing. But kids can be annoying. It can be
yeah.
so
Of
annoying.
course, of course.
Like I remember listening to Russell Brand in one of his books. I forget what the name of the book was, but he was saying, and I didn't get it at the time because I think Mason was maybe 1.5, just two, and 2 to 3 to me honestly was a fantastic age. It's 3 is Jesus. What he said was he said that they just have an infinite amount of beautiful energy that it's nearly too much. Like oh well actually sometimes their test limits are a little bit naughty and it's like but again like naughty's nearly a construct unless they're actually violent. It's like it's like they're just making a mess or they're exploring they're touching stuff that maybe it feels nice for them or they don't know what it feels like so they're touching it and
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
rubbing it here there and everywhere or whatever. But it's like they literally just have this endless supply of energy. And as adults, it's like we've got our priorities already set up, and sometimes all we're maxed out, and they're coming to us with more. It's like haven't got enough for you. Give us a
yeah,
break. It's like I'm sure every parent understands that. Like I seen it again on TikTok, and some parent was like, "I absolutely love this human. I would die for this human. Would I jump in front of a train for this child just to make sure that it never had to feel when I was paying 100%? But it is my favorite time of day also when that child is asleep. You better believe. And it's
yeah,
kind of you can understand that. It's like when you start to become burnt out. It's like sometimes all the mind wants is peace, and hopefully along your journey of self growth, your tolerance becomes better, and that's what I'm working on at the minute. It's like I want to make sure that at the end of every day, I've got my day routine enough that I haven't bit off more than I can chew. I'm not burning the candle at both ends. That when that child goes to sleep, it my candle burns out after theirs because there's nothing worse than that child having more. And again, like kids have pretty small batteries. To be fair to them, like I mean, like that's one of my favorite things and tactics for getting Mason to sleep when he was a mover. And Zach will be coming soon. Was that I used to just walk him and play with him until he'd start falling over. It was like he just couldn't hold himself up because I know it's like, look, this battery's going to run out, and that obviously gets bigger as they get bigger, and that's why we have to hopefully be better. But the key is like if your battery's running out before their batteries, like that's like again stuff like that can happen, and it's sad. And again, is that your fault? Maybe that's not your fault. Maybe you've got again back to Jocko Willink, extreme ownership. It's like maybe it's all your fault. Maybe not your fault, but your responsibility. But it's like let's say for talk's sake, God forbid, you don't have a partner for whatever reason. Maybe something happened, medical issue, whatever. You don't have parents. You've got 2 kids, 2 beautiful kids. So you're burnt out now. You're literally trying to do it all. It's like in that situation, what do you do?
Yeah. This is what it, this is what we're talking about. It's like being like, are you fit to be a dad? Are you fit to be a parent? Like this kind of journey of self-actualization, working on these things so that we minimize the chance of casting spells, let's say, on our own kids. And it's not to say that we're never going to do it or we're going to get things right, but it's just kind of having that level of awareness and trying to practice patience and giving genuine care and attention and just trying to be the best you can be. Because as you said, like that's a good analogy, like making sure your candle doesn't go out before theirs. And this is what a lot of people do. Like as we talk about like fitness, is like a lot of people just don't have the energy for it because like being an adult is hard. Like there's so many responsibilities, like there's so much stuff to do all the time, and it's hard to when you're stressed out about big problems to find in genuine interest in the small thing that your child is trying to show you and thinks the best thing ever. To try and mirror that is difficult, and it's it's hard to be patient after a long day's work, etc. But this is the game. This is what I believe the game is, to do the best that we can. Obviously, the goal is to do the best you can. I feel like these things can and will happen, but it's like, did you do your best? Could you be better prepared? Like if you were living a healthier lifestyle, would you be so quick to anger? If you were exercising regularly, like would you be so anxious all the time? You get what I'm saying? So it's just like, are you doing everything in your power?
We haven't even touched on nutrition.
Yeah.
Like that's massive. Like for me as a dad, like I mean, you have to be so organized in order to get your nutrition dialed in, because like again, it's so manic in the house. So there's always something to be done. It's like, if like talk about the weeds grow. If I just leave my house alone, it just becomes an absolute bomb site with those two kids pulling out toys and things that aren't toys until they're all just over the floor. And so that's a constant job that needs monitored. Now, again, you can pick how, what's your standard. And again, some days it's not reasonable to get it all tidied up all the time. But it's like, that's a job that always needs done. It's a stress that always needs managed. And then on top of that, you have to feed them, change them, feed yourself, change yourself, wash the kids, do your job, spend time with your partner. God forbid, relax for 5 to 10 minutes and just do absolutely nothing. Maybe go on your phone, maybe, engage in a hobby and stuff like that. But it's like, so how do we manage all that? It's like, so again, we're back to the timetable tactic. It's like meals are going to be key because that's the fuel that's keeping it all going. It's like, so again, number 1 is sleep. Number 2 is time management. Number 3 is nutrition. It's like, is the nutrition there, or are you on this sugar spike? And then caffeine would be another one. If you drink coffee, it's like, are you on this caffeine crash? Is that affecting your sleep? It's like, you have to be really mindful as to what you're taking into your body, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but it can't be shite. You know what I mean? Like, if there's absolutely zero standards, and that's another big thing that we could maybe talk about as well, because it kind of is a coverall. It's like, what are your standards? It's like, again, it's like, do you have high enough standards to be a dad? Like, or because again, you're setting your kids' standards. If they see you low standards, they're going to low standards.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the hard stuff. It's like, because then it's almost like your kids are subconsciously judging you, all the time. But you kind of have to live up to the.
Well, remember, they're
challenge.
not judging you so much as you're going to judge them. So if you have low standards and then you see, the behavior that's going to breed in them, and then you have to now deal with them, because initially they're not going to judge you at all. They're going to model you. And then you're going to say, why are you so lazy? You're going to say things like, why do you never clean your room? It was like, well, you never clean your room, or you never help me clean my room. It's like, it's like we just expect them to just be these automatically amazing people, even though they're brought up and again, not to say it bad, it's like even a mediocre environment. It's like, if the standards are just a little bit lax, and then you take that lax environment and times it by a child's mentality. Like Mason, one of the hilarious things I think was really funny was when he was 2, I could get him to do jobs by just turning a very simple job with an excited attitude into a game. Let's see how fast we can put away the cushions. No problem. And now it's like, oh, Mason, go get your doo-doo. And he's like, no, I lazy. It was like, it's like they just it's instinctual to be lazy. Like he's already in the place where he'll just try and reserve his energy. Oh, carry me up the stairs. Like just things is like, oh, actually, I couldn't really be bothered with that, and that's human nature. But it's like, as the adult, hopefully you've disciplined yourself out of that, or it's like, is that still you? Oh, I'm too lazy. Oh, I can't do that. It's like, come on. It's like, oh, because otherwise that's what you're going to be dealing with. And that's one of my favorite quotes. I think I said it in one of our very first podcasts before I had kids is never let your kids do things that make you dislike them. Because you can dislike your kids. And other people can dislike.
Not necessarily dislike. Well, you possibly can't dislike, but you can definitely resent them because of the, if you feel like saying this whole thing is like, if you feel like they've taken more, or what is it like this whole thing of resentment? What even would that look like? It's obviously it's hard to imagine now because I'm still in the rose tinted glasses.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
To kind of phase, but but there is people out there that resent their kids because maybe they didn't plan on having kids. They had a dream, they had a mission, they had something that they were working towards, and they kind of got sidetracked. And it's just really what story do you have about it, really, isn't it? Like being a dad is a blessing, but imagine operating where it's not that situation. But I feel like it's just all about the self-actualization. It's everything feeds into everything else. It's just like, be the best version of you, the start. Fill up your own cup first. And if you're the best you can be, automatically you'll be the best dad you can be, obviously. Kind of go from there. What do you think? Because obviously it was Jordan Peterson said that thing. Go on, sorry.
Just because you have high standards and you're disciplined and you've got a good balanced perspective. And they're like, geez, you go far away with that. Because again, you can make fair calls. You can make fair calls and you can understand when you're wrong and you can understand when they're doing something wrong and you can understand, like again, if you're a man or woman of principles, it's like, well, these principles are universal. I remember I heard Alex Hormozy, he was talking about his algorithm is filled with two things. There's two forms of entertainment or kind of pages that he follows. One is philosophy and the other is comedy. And I was like, why? What do those things have in common? They're true. And so it's like that's something that I really resonated with because I didn't think about it consciously before, but it's like something that I love about principles and comedy and philosophy is that they're universal. Like if you have a universal truth, like that's so beneficial because you can't bullshit that. Like there's no bullshit in the way. It's like unless again you want to start engaging in a very funny game, it's like we know what's right and we know what's wrong unless you've never delved deep. Like if you're not funny or you've got a twisted sense of humor, like that generally is like if you don't click with people don't really vibe with you on like a jokey, like if you can't banter, like, and that's something again, it's like it's very, very important for kids and for social development, and it's important to you. It's like that you can tease them and they can tease you, that you get, it's like, listen, you can't take yourself too seriously, but we also have to know what's too far. It's like, and again, that's kind of what it's all about. And then again, it's like having these principles, like in terms of philosophy, and kind of digging deep into a little bit of philosophy to ask yourself these questions. Like again, like what are we doing now? It's like maybe like what is the right answer? It's like we can sit here and spin.
Part of what I'm realizing during this conversation, it's like I really don't know. I'm still figuring it out. Like, and that's okay. It's like I'm still figuring out. There's no perfect answer. It's like really, it's like what does it mean to you? Like what's important to you now? And kind of go with that, and just as long as your intention is to be the best you can be, take care of your kids, love your kids, provide for your kids. But I feel like there obviously is some sort of different element of being a dad versus being a mother that is different, in the sense that our job is to I feel like the thing that gives me the greatest satisfaction is to provide for my family, to give them resources, so that they can first off enjoy it. So it's like, okay, right, who could like. You would much rather see them go off and do I'd happily spend the day at work so they could go off and do something together. I like that you wouldn't necessarily be. You'd almost get more pride in it, and the more pride in the suffering. Not I suffered so that they could do that nice thing, but always be better than actually being there with them. But I feel like that's what I'm trying to say. Like the whole thing about fatherhood, like I feel like it is a little bit different. I seen there was a cool quote here. I think it was from Vince Lombardi. You've heard of was it Vincent Barty? I think it was. I have a caption here, but it's raising children with respect for others, passion for their life, and ability to give and receive love. It's impacting their life in a positive way, so that their solitude, in their solitude, they can hear your voice, feel your encouragement, know your love, and most of all, whisper to them the courage to take on every one of life's challenges. So it's like just giving them the like to elevate their consciousness above off that lower level, this kind of scarcity mindset, to kind of take scarcity off the plate, so these kids can, play, and they can love, and they can have access to all of these different things, because that's where so many people are stuck, and it's so hard for some people. We are so lucky that we've got good families, and what do they call it? Nuclear family, for one, because I can't imagine how people do it, like without having two people in the house, without even having the nanas and stuff to call around and kind of give a chip in as well. Like, it'd be very, very difficult. So do take everything that we see with a pinch of salt. Say again, because we've only our own lived experience. But for me, that's what gives me the most satisfaction. This whole thing, like people talk about, the patriarchy and different stuff. Like, honestly, my mission is to be the patriarch, be the rich old granda that takes care of everybody. Like, that's who I would love to be. Like, I don't think anything else would make me happier than being that person. Being able to look after my grandkids and take care of everybody. Like, that's to me seems like the highest purpose available to me. That's really what
my greatest purpose for me. I feel like a little bit more of a, like, obviously I'm a father as well, so there is obviously that responsibility to provide. But I feel like a shaman, like a shaman and a jester. Like, I feel like it's very important to, like, spiritually guide. Like, I don't necessarily need to be a controlling force, and I don't really want to be a controlling force. But sometimes you need to draw lines, and I feel like that's kind of like one of the reasons. Like, again, the jester element, things like I want to be a joker. Like, I want to help you find the lines either side. Like, I want to, like, again, like, play, for example, is probably one of the best ways to describe this with kids, and even adults. Like, play physically. I want you to know where the boundaries are. I want you to know when you're safe, and I want you to know when you're not safe. I want to know when you're been funny and when you're been rude. I want you to know. I want you to know when you're been naughty and when you're been nice, and I want to help you draw those boundaries out for yourself. And that's not always, again, especially when it comes to the role of discipline. And that's kind of where I feel like, and again, maybe I'm wrong, mammies out there, if you're listening, I'm very sorry, but I feel like in my household anyway, it's like I'm the disciplinarian. It's like I'm the one who puts the foot down, and I do not actually, like, just biologically feels like I don't mind when you're upset if I think it's good for you. Like, if I think, like, if I feel like a timeout is appropriate, or I feel like the word no is going to benefit you in the long run, it's like I don't mind if you well up in the face. In fact, I think it's good for you. And obviously there's a balance to that. And the same with playing. It's like I don't mind taking, like, in my experience, one of the best things I do for Mason is, like, it's like if we're wrestling, it's like I'll wait until he gets like it's like, right, that's it. It's like I want you to struggle. I don't want you to struggle, but I don't ever make you upset. You know what I mean? So I want you to find the lines physically, so yourself. And again, so if somebody else applies a little bit of pressure on you, that you're kind of used to it. It's like that you're not this delicate little flower that's never had any kind of pressure at all. It's like that you've had pressure put on you. You know how to deal with it, and you're comfortable there. It's like that that it's and I'm out. And it's kind of like, just kind of stuff like that. And I feel like I just want to be the guiding force for these little souls to find, again, their higher selves, like, so that they can but get there quicker than I did. You know what I mean? Because I just feel like it was a mess for me to get there. And again, that's the role of the shaman, is, guiding people on their spiritual experience and letting them make their own mistakes is a crucial point and part of that. And so, again, I feel like if we want our kids to live this perfect life, I feel like that's like a little bit naive. I feel like they're gonna feel pain.
Have to struggle. Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more skills. Like, we need to make sure that they're well equipped with the strong skill set and good characters, because life is going to be hard regardless. We can't protect them from everything.
One of the worst things I feel like I ever did in terms of my boxing career was that we never in the gym, like in Cloniffe, we never played. We never played the fight. We always fought the fight. And I feel like one of the best things we ever did was the touch sparring, was the shoulders, knees. Like we turned it into a game. And so it's like, right, I want to play these games with you, that you know the terrain well enough that when it comes time to go out there, that you're used to the terrain. You know, it's like, but I also, you know, as a dad, like I want to take these kids, like I'm going to take my kids training. You know, training is one of the reasons why I love training. Is like, we're going to suffer here. Like this isn't going to, like every step of the way, this is not going to be nice. There's going to be a point here now where you're at your breaking point, you're at your limit, you're very, very emotional, you're very, you know, you're starting to break down a little bit, and then we'll take a break.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So hopefully, if you ever come up against a situation like that in your life, it's like you have an identity of somebody's like, fuck, I don't want to do this today, but I'm going to do it anyway. Like that to me, like when we started working here and I started doing the 115 class, just even back in the other spot, it's like when I knew that was coming every day and there was no getting out of it, like that is such a powerful experience.
Just accept it and move on.
That's
It's
it.
the negotiation is the hard part.
Yeah.
It's no, oh, shall I do this one or shall I do the next one? Then maybe I'll go later. And if I don't go later, shall I do this instead? So no,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I have to go. So
what do you learn?
it's
You learn to talk yourself out of it. It's a bad habit to get into, talk yourself out of it. Oh, yes. And so again, it's like if you can make it non-negotiable, and also then like that conversation. The thing about it is like that conversation's not there. It's like it's there. It was like you just get used to. This is part of it. This is the routine. Like every day it's like, all right, it's coming. 1:15. It's a long day. You know what I mean? 10 past 1. Oh, here we go. 2 minutes into the warm. Now here we go. We're feeling loose again. It's like, but it's everything before that. It's the thoughts of it. And it's like that with work. It's like that with nutrition. It can be like that in relationships. It's like, but if we get into the I was talking to one of the clients there today. I'm not sure what the book is, and I heard a great analogy for it as well. I kind of go into two that you're talking about. It's like it's that chimp in your brain. It's the chimp brain. You know, it's talking you out of it. It's like it's that chimp that makes you want to pull over, you know, the car. You know, it's like he gives you the finger. Oh, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna fight with him. You know, it's like. And another thing is like a good analogy I heard during the week was, it's like a roommate that lives in your head. And generally, like this guy's a waster. It's like every once in a while he's got a good idea, but in general, like you just live with this person. They're your roommate, and they're going to tell you, they're going to talk you out of your dreams pretty much if you let them. And that's based just on, you know, general experience. And if we kind of come back to as a parent, it's your job to program the roommate. It's like hopefully you've given them a helpful roommate, but again, he's still, you know, only like if your child
because all the roommate has heard is, you know, useful, empowering, encouraging things. Like, you know, so like you get this, and that's the whole thing. That's what my thing with the wee story around. It's like we're giving them the script. Like that's where the responsibility is. Like how we speak to them and how we treat them. I think is so important.
One of the other sides of it as well is like allow people to save face is a great way to communicate. Like, so when my roommate was listening to David Goggins, like he was sitting there, like obviously with his big complaining head in him, who isn't motivated for anything. And I'll never forget when I did the Murph about a year ago. I remember that roommate for the first time in my life had some positive talk for me. And I was like, no way. Like I was doing posts and I was broken. And instead of going like, oh, this is terrible, it's like, come on, we can do it. Who's going to carry the boats? You know, let's go, baby. And so I was like, geez, David Goggins is living with me instead of whoever was living with me before. And it's like, so if we can help our kids have a roommate, like that voice inside is well dialed in, well tuned in. And again, that roommate is modeling you. And I was like, they're modeling the parent, or modeling the parent, or modeling the parent. And if you've got a bit of a waster for a roommate, or your kid has a waster for a roommate, you know, and that's probably going to be the way because they're only kids. So the roommate's a kid, you know, it's like, it's not a very mature thing. It's like, that's fine for now because thank God they have another roommate, which is you. You know, you're the actual roommate. You are going to bring them on. You're going to help them out. And so again, it's like when it comes time to clean the room, you're going to help them clean the room. That's one of the most effective strategies I have for Mason, getting Mason to clean up. It's like, oh, Mason, will you clean up your toys? And I was like, no, I don't want to clean up my toys. It's like, come on, let's clean it up together. I'll start. You know, it's like, and so, okay. You know, it's like we're doing this together. Instead of trying to put it all on them, it's like we're there to help them pick up the load. Like we're there as their guide. We're there as their Sherpa. It's like, I'm here, team you. And the reason I have enough energy to help you is because I filled my cup first. I help me and I have some for you. Whereas if I don't even have enough for me, which is an awful lot of people, it's like when it comes to your kids, it's like I can't even help you. I don't have enough.
Yeah. Or and then we pacify them with different things, or TV and food, and kind of going for the quick way, because we don't have the energy to do it the way that we know we should do it. It's like the hard way, like you have to have the hard conversation, you have to do that. Like even putting them into a timeout is difficult, or doing these things. It's hard. Like if Molly doesn't want to do something, it's like it's hard. It's like I'm going, all right, because I don't know to avoid the tantrum here. I could just give her what she wants, or I have to get down to her level, talk with her, reason with her, try and kind of save the situation a little bit, where it's so easy for things just okay, just kind of have what you want, have the treat, do what you want to do.
What is your knowledge on the timeout? Because I know that's a little bit up for debate now. Because like apparently
Jen's not a big fan of timeouts and like that at all. No, we kind of just really try to the whole just get down to their level, talk with them. Like there's no they like in the sense they can't do anything wrong, because
it's just
it's like they don't have any bad intentions. So why would you kind of condemn or criticize anything that they tried to do? Jen's always sending me stuff. It's something that we would love to learn even more about, like especially like things like the Montessori route is something that we kind of both seem to kind of jibe with. I'm not sure. Like yes, I don't
apparently
know.
It's damaging. You know what I mean? Like apparently, it's like, it teaches that, okay, when you don't act a certain way, I remove myself.
Exactly.
Like,
that you get excluded from the family, or
you're not deserving of love at this current moment. It's like, am I not?
But it's like, no, you're always deserving of love. So here I'm going to get down and in a lovingly way try and explain to you why that was not necessarily the best possible thing. I'd love to get Jen to talk, because Jen actually knows a lot more about this than I do.
Jen's on the next podcast.
Yeah, hopefully. But we're gonna have to wrap it up. But even just before we finish there, you also with the whole thing like carry the boats, like the whole thing like Fit for Fatherhood, like it really is all down to leadership at the end of the day, I think. As you said, like who's gonna carry the boats? It's like that's kind of what being a dad is, like, oh, clean up your toys. It's like, no, let's clean up the toys together. And then the key thing you said was I'll start. So like you do it first. Like I feel like that's really kind of what it has to be. And obviously said these things are hard, like by no means perfect. As long as you're doing your best, your best is good enough. Just keep doing that, and your best will continue to get better and better. Any dads out there, you should be proud of yourself. It's a absolute privilege, but it is a lot of responsibility to take care of a family. So fair play to everybody out there doing some good work and raising some good kids. Because I can't think of anything greater to dedicate your life to than kind of raising a family and raising good children, and like the impact that could potentially have across time is immense. But do you anything you want to say before we wrap it up, Brandon?
No, just thanks for listening, guys. I really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks so much for listening. And then just kind of as a side note, if Peter's editing this, if you can, Peter, is one of my favorite videos, and obviously I would like you to cut this out if you can't get the clip. But again, I sent it to Stephen the other. Maybe I get Stephen to send it to you, or I'll find it and send it. David Goggins just on being a leader. And I feel like, again, as you said, being a dad is about being a leader. It's like you must start to see yourself as a leader, and as a leader, it's like there's no easy way out, there's no days off. And again, I feel like that's a really important message for dads out there, because once we kind of start forging that identity, and again, growing small in it, because again, we can't just turn ourselves around overnight. But again, once we kind of start growing in that right direction, and as you said, treating ourselves as leaders, I feel like David Goggins, that quote's pretty badass. I just love that. That was the first motivational speech I ever saved for myself since I listened to ET. That was the one that got me back into it. That's what got me into David Goggins.
What is it? Who's going to carry the boats one?
No. The one that I sent you a link the other day. We'll play it.
Today is your opportunity to be a leader. You must look at yourself as a leader. As a leader, you no longer have the fucking option to take the easy path in life. As a leader, there is no snooze button. It can be very lonely. Through your actions, you can change the mindset of those around you. You must do when you don't want to do. You have to find your best self when you are the least motivated. Your brain is like a muscle. You have to push it to a point of discomfort. All those days and nights you don't want to train, those are the days you must train. You must change the way you look at discomfort.
All right, guys, thanks for listening. Do the whole like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Share with your friends, but more importantly, have a conversation. Anything that we said today, you agree with, you don't agree with, let us know. We'd love to get your feedback. I said we're learning as we go here, but appreciate your time, appreciate you listening to the podcast, and we'll see you in the next one.
Peace.